for August 18th open. And at this point, I will call for approval for the minutes from our July 21st meeting.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. And John, we have a continued public hearing for 400 Manley Street, which I'm guessing they want to continue, but we had it as a discussion item, whether we wanted to.
Right. I got an email today because I had sent him off the agenda when it was posted last Thursday with the town clerk. I sent the engineer a copy of the agenda, and it obviously had in there that we might discuss closing it. And he sent an email today asking us to continue it to the first meeting in September. I would say that there is no chance that he is going to get that plan to us to get on the agenda for, which I think he had to be in on Monday to get on to the first. So the only one he could get on would be for the second meeting in September. So I would, if you're inclined to continue and let him continue, then it would be the second meeting in September.
How long's it been now?
February?
Yeah, and yeah, I'm in favor of closing it.
How about if we were to continue it to, because he has to get the stuff in on by our deadline, which includes the review by the 53G consultant. And so he has to get that information into the consultant at least a week for them to look at it. And then for them to give us a report on the changes or how the changes were made and whether they were acceptable by our deadline. And so I think even the second week in September would be not even close. So if you're going to continue it, it should be the first meeting in October. And I will, if you decide to do that, I will make sure that he understands that if it's not ready by all the deadlines, then we will close it and he'll have to do it again. He'll have to make a whole new public hearing, add all of that. So that would be my recommendation.
I'd agree.
Yeah, I don't think.
Go ahead, Mo.
I don't think we've been that specific with him up to this point, you know, but maybe this time we say these are the dates you're looking at, and if it doesn't happen, then we're going to close the hearing.
I like it.
Yeah, I'd agree. So I'll entertain a motion to continue to the first meeting in October.
Make the motion.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. All right, now we just have our administrative items.
Right. I'm going to open up the screen and share with you some of these things. So the first thing on the agenda is, was it the invoices?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. I'm gonna not share and just tell you what the invoices are because I have them with me. So the first one is a WB Mason invoice for $12.30 for shipping labels. There's the Zoom invoice subscription for August for $14.99. There are two invoices are from Mass Association of Conservation Commissions where Mo participated in a fundamentals course for $55 and paid for it with his own credit card. So it would be reimbursing Mo. And the second one for Mo, which was a environmental law update workshop for $25, and he paid that with his credit card. And even though it wasn't on the agenda, there were 2 more invoices that came in today for WB Mason. One for $18.90 for a step stool, folding step stool, because some of the high drawers that Kitty has to get into strain her back, and she was out for a day because she strained her back trying to lift the heavy file folders out of the very top filing cabinet drawers. So I suggested she get a step stool so that she'd be at the same level or close to the same level, and it seems to work. We've gotten it, and she likes it. And then the last WB Mason is 3 plastic file tubs. We've done away with the metal cart that used to be rolled down to the meeting room years ago. And she kept all the files in that as they were progressing through the process. And we're trying to make some room in the conservation office by moving things that are really not necessary. So she got these 3 plastic filing tubs from WB Mason to put in the files that were normally in that cart. And so that is a invoice for $42 for the 3 of them. And that's it for invoices.
All right, anybody have any questions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to authorize me to sign off on the invoices.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, so moved. Okay, John, now we have some inspections.
Yes. Now I sent you a report. I'm going to share a screen with some of that information. The first one is, which one, Tim, on the agenda?
10 Woodrow Lane.
Oh, yes. So the homeowner had applied for a building permit, and you can see the screen now.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Had applied for a building permit, and I went out to inspect it, knowing that the buffer zone, the 50-foot buffer zone, pretty much followed this chain link fence that you see on the left of the photo. And you can see my arrow pointing to a white pipe here, which is a conservation marker just on the other side of the fence. And this is a file photo that was taken during the process of possibly checking it for the certificate of compliance. And you can see the buffer zone has got the vegetation in it and so forth. And what they were proposing on the building permit was to take this existing deck and enclose it in and put a roof on it with windows and make it a family room for the house. And I always knew that the steps and the railings and the overhang were right along the chain link fence that runs even on the back side of that deck over to the stairs that comes out from another part of the house. So they're really limited in their backyard space. And they now have a nice patio here where they have their patio chairs and that kind of thing. So they're utilizing it the way they are supposed to. But when I went out there, I'm going to stop sharing this and show you the next one. This is the same post, and you can see the vegetation was taken down. So I spent a little bit of time walking in the 50-foot buffer, and was a little bit alarmed, but there was nobody home to talk to. So I'm going to show you the next one. So now I'm on the other side of the fence. The previous photo was taken from the other side of the fence looking towards what is now the camera. And so that's that same post. And so there's a stump here, a stump here, and a stump here, and the underbrush is cut out of here. And they had some trees that got damaged in the windstorm, so they brought in the tree company, and the tree company cut the trees out of there. They didn't stump them. They left the stumps. But when I informed the owner that they had done that without the permission of the commission, they were surprised, number one, that they couldn't do that. And so I told them that I would bring this up to the commission meeting at the August 4th meeting. And so we didn't have that, of course, because of the power failure. But in the meantime, I held a Zoom meeting with the owners and went over the conservation easement requirements and what it allows and what it doesn't allow. And they understand now. They're very concerned that that they did something wrong. So I think they're very apologetic at this point. And so I don't know how you want to proceed from here, but they do understand that that is not an area that they can disturb. And they are basically saying it was disturbed because of the tree cutters going in there. And that is what they said was the reason for the disturbance.
Was that fence put in by the owners, John?
Yes.
It was.
Yeah, originally, I believe the builder didn't put that fence in. There was just the silt fence and the pipes that were out there.
Okay. Well, I mean, I have some strong feelings about it myself, but I'd be interested to hear what, I mean, my feelings would be you get a wetland scientist to see what's missing, to replant trees big enough to replace those three, and let it go at that.
Yeah, I'd go with planting saplings or, to replace the trees.
Yeah, those are big trees that came out of there. I mean, everyone, when they seem to, when we show up, it's like, I didn't know, I'm sorry, it gets tiresome after a while.
Yep. And if they took them down because they were damaged in a storm, they still needed to come before us. I'm almost where Mo is, to the point where we need to come up with a system to charge $50 an inch, $100 an inch for the diameter of those trees.
Yeah.
Make it a fine.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just going to keep saying, oh, we didn't know. And now they've got this nice big open area that's, 50-footer in the wetland area. And it's, I mean, yeah, they get more sun in their backyard. They've cleared everything around the back.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I mean, it's a new lot. I mean, the markers were there. The tree company should have known and done something and called.
Yeah. Well, under the that enforcement seminar that I heard, an attorney said that there's a lot of times there's even grounds for going after the tree cutters because they should know better. But that's another story.
Right, and I mean, most of the tree companies have insurance or a bond or something, so when they do work like this, they're
Yes.
covered for something, and they can go after their insurance company and file a claim that their
Yeah.
employees were negligent. But I mean,
Yeah.
this is happening more and more, like Mo said, and
And it
feel
looks
bad,
a
I
little bit
understand their
more clean.
ignorance.
It looks a little more cleaned out than just taking care of, some trees that got in the way or fell down. I mean, that's perfectly cleared out. So I'm in favor of having the owner replant whatever was in there. I don't know what we can do about the big trees that are gone, but I've seen enough.
Well, just to add some information, this is number 10, but on the end of the cul-de-sac, there are two houses, number 10 and number 9. And I was out inspecting or responding to a tip that there was some cutting being done at the end of Brooks Place. And so I was out trying to find that area, and on my way back on Brooks Place, when I got to Woodrow, I looked up the street for no reason at all other than I just looked up the street. And in the horizon, I could see a crane sticking up over the trees because the road actually makes a little bend when you go in. And so I turned and went in, and there was a crane behind number 9 Woodrow. And so I knocked on the door and asked the owner if I could take a look at where the trees were being cut. And because he had a conservation easement, he was aware of that. So he took me out there, and he was knowledgeable about the situation at number 10. So he was having the gentlemen that were there cutting from the tree company cutting. He had them only taking out 3 trees that were on his side of the conservation marker and nothing else, and he wasn't going to be stumping it. So I took pictures and documented which ones he was planning to take, and I will go back and check it. But he was already aware that we had pulled the plug on the building permit for this addition until the next meeting that we could discuss it. So after having that Zoom meeting with the owner and having them understand why I did not sign off on the building permit, I released the building permit because they aren't going into the buffer. But based on what you're discussing tonight, the appropriate step would be, if this is what you're looking at, is having some restoration of the buffer. We could do an enforcement order that requires the hiring of a restoration scientist and have them do up a report on how they were going to take care of the buffer that's been disturbed, suggesting the type of tree, the size of the tree, and the shrub and ground cover to be used there. And then have that with a deadline at one of the upcoming meetings. So they will progress with their building permit since it's outside the 50-foot buffer. And I did hold them up for at least a couple of weeks until we could set up that Zoom meeting. And so I think they understand the impact of that, and they will understand the impact of what you're looking at tonight that you're suggesting. So I would say it should be done as an enforcement order, and I can draw that up and send it around for individual review. And if no one has any suggested changes to it, I could then send it out and we could ratify it at the very next meeting, which is September 1st. No, is it the 1st?
Yes.
I should
think it
pull my
is.
calendar. I have a phone right here. I could look at my calendar. Sorry.
Yeah. The first is John.
What was that, Steve?
For September 1st is the first Tuesday of the month.
Yeah, yeah.
So if we
Well, I
ratify it
like that
then,
idea, John. I think that's exactly what we need to do. I mean, we have to, people have to spend a little money to realize that, you know, we don't do all these things just because we, you know.
yeah, I mean,
And I think
especially,
I think in the
especially with
future,
the markers out there. I mean,
they're right there. They're
yeah,
right there. Yeah. And I think, Tim, I really like your idea because I asked the question on one of the seminars, how do you restore trees, you know, that are 12 inches in diameter? And they said, you don't.
Yeah.
You don't. So maybe we have at some future meeting, we talk about perhaps establishing some kind of fine per inch. How does that sound?
Yeah, 'cause I mean, even if you said they had to plant a tree, say 1 inch caliper tree and plant 12 of them to equal those
Yeah.
12 inches, you're still only going to have a few of those trees survive because they'll be
That's right.
overcrowded. So
Right.
it really doesn't equal what was taken. And what was
Exactly.
taken was a substantial tree. I mean,
Yeah. And
John,
so
would they have
despite
time
that,
to hire somebody and
despite the-
get a report to us for September, or are we looking like beginning of October?
So I believe that somebody like, and I'll just mention the name only because you're familiar with them, Environmental Restoration Corporation, which does some of the wetland flagging for a lot of the engineering companies, would be able to come out to the site and prepare a written plan on how to replant this and restore it to a certain extent. I know we'll never get back to what it was, and wouldn't necessarily need to have the engineer there to drop a plan. I think they can use the existing as-built plans and things that we have and be able to approximate where those stumps are located and write up a written plan on how to restore the area. So having said that, that means that they're not relying on the engineering companies that are straight out and very busy, which takes months to get their work done. I think they have a little bit more flexibility and they can get out. So I would say that if we had them file something for our second meeting in September, that would be fair.
Okay.
And it's actually getting into the fall planting season, that kind of thing.
Right, and then
We
it's
don't
time
have
to
the-
finish it before
We
winter.
don't have the homeowner on here, do we?
They were aware that we were having the meeting and that they could go to the town website and get the agenda, but I didn't invite them directly, no.
All right. All right, well, I like that idea. So I don't know if we're in getting close to the end of the growing season or how that works, but you guys would know better than I.
No, if they got it in September, they could do a planting in October or November, and there'd be
Yeah.
plenty of time to get it in.
Okay. All right.
So I'll entertain a motion to,
So in order for them to be on the second meeting in September, they have to have their plan in fairly early, 2 weeks before that meeting. So that even gives them less time. So that's why I'm suggesting September. I don't want to see the plan come in like the day of the meeting or
Yep.
a couple of days before the meeting. We need to have time to look at it and for me to get it out to you members to take a look at as well.
Okay.
then I'll entertain a motion for an enforcement requiring a restoration plan for 10 Woodrow Lane.
Make that
Sound
motion.
good?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved. Okay, next, John, we have 218 South Elm Street, the transfer station.
So, as many of you probably know who go to the transfer station, just before you get up to the main complex, there was a dumpster on the side of the road with wood chips over to the right-hand side. And so all of these wood chips were brought in from the Friendship Park. That used to be the base material for the Friendship Park. They brought it over here and dumped it in this area here and then pushed it way over the bank. So as part of a septic system designed for the attendant building, which is right in this area, the town hired Silva Engineering to go out and do a site plan of the transfer station area. And they had the flagging done that was in this area here. So on the top part of the plan is the driveway coming in from South Elm Street, and that dumpster was right in this area here where I show it as a gravel pull-off area. So the photo I showed you just before was from about where my cursor is towards the pile, and you can see where the wetland flags are here in relation to what I sketched on as what I thought was the wood chip pile and the edge of the woods. So all of those colored lines, other than this yellow, were things that I added on to the plot plan that was done by Silva, just to be able to explain to both the commission and the DPW what the issue was. And so the last exhibit for this is this photo here. And you can see where the wetland flags are in this photo and where the edge of the wood chips are. This debris over here was already there. That's not new, that was existing. And so I met with both Chris and Sean about this at the site, explained what the issue was about the 50-foot buffer that goes along the edge of the wetland. And we stood on the pile and looked at some of the flags that were down over the edge. And they immediately said that they were going to start preparations for pulling it back and getting it away from and out of the 50-foot buffer. So today, this afternoon, I spoke with Sean, and he has completed that task, and I plan to go down tomorrow and inspect what it looks like and offer any suggestions if it's necessary. So that is the result of the observations that one or more of you had made, and my inspection and the results of what our instructions were to them. Do you have anything else that you would wanted to add?
Only question is, how soon will we be seeing plans for the work to be done at the transfer station for the building and any site changes and improvements?
I haven't heard anything, and I can find out.
Only because I don't want to throw good money ahead of bad money or vice versa, but it might behoove us to have them put some wetland markers where the 50-foot is. So they don't make the mistake in the future, and it lets town residents, which use the transfer station, know that's a wetland and the town protects it. And at least it's a little more visual than just one person's backyard that we have to do an enforcement on. But I don't want to have them put signs in if they're gonna have to do work and remove them and do all that. But that would be my only comment.
Yeah, because it's being used as a pull-off now, I would think, right?
Yes. So if that's what you would like, I could make contact with Silva Engineering and talk to Chris first, obviously, but talk to Silva Engineering and explain that we need in that area, in any area that they propose to work for this upgrade of the transfer station area for both septic and possibly a new building. I'm not sure if that's in the works or not, but that we'd want the 50-foot markers in, and when they file a notice of intent, because they're going to have to.
Okay, that would make sense. Thank you, John.
Yeah, I don't think we need any motions or anything for that, do we?
No,
No, not really.
no enforcement order on this one.
All right.
All right.
So
Next we had 143 Scotland Street,
Okay.
order of conditions, violation inspection.
So this is 143 Scotland Street. They came before, the owner came before the commission quite a while back, possibly not quite a year ago. And if you recall, they wanted to take the steep drop off at the edge of their backyard, which sloped right down to the 50-foot buffer of the wetland, and it was very steep. They wanted to flatten that out and not make it as steep. And you can see the swing set and the shed that was existing at that time. So as part of inspecting for 153, which we'll discuss shortly, I noticed that that they had done the work for gradually sloping off this back area down to the 50-foot buffer, and moved the shed down and installed an above-ground portable pool. And yet the order of conditions were still sitting in the conservation office waiting for them to pick the orders up and record them at the registry. So I was going to discuss this with the commission at the last meeting, which was canceled. But in the meantime, I got a hold of the owner and explained that he was in violation of the order of conditions, because the first thing you need to do is file it with the registry of deeds, and that he had done the work without filing it. So he came down, gave us the deposit for surety for requesting a certificate of compliance, and then took the orders and filed them at the registry, and I have the receipt for that now. And so that's what it looked like before, and I'll show you what it looks like now and what attracted my attention. So the former shed was here. The back of the original lot was here. And you can see they did fill in this to gradually make a nice slope for the backyard. And they moved the swing set and the shed back to the 50-foot buffer. So they haven't encroached as far as I can determine, and we'd know that once they do their certificate of compliance work. But they now have done their work before they filed their order of conditions. I'll show you another photo which shows the pool. So there's that shed and the swing set. And this is a portable pool that comes down in the wintertime. I know some above ground pools, they leave them up all winter long, but from what I've heard from the owner, it's a pool that comes down after the season because I guess it can't withstand the freezing of the water inside. So it's considered a portable pool. So where we stand with it is they're now in compliance by recording the order of conditions, and they did the work prior to that, but he was not certain of the process and just went ahead and did it. And we just assumed wasn't going to start the work right away. And of course, we discovered that when I was inspecting next door. So I don't know how you want to handle that. It seems like it's now in compliance, and I didn't see anything obvious of any wetland violation or going too far.
Yeah, I wasn't too sure myself what exactly the violation was when it first came up, but now I understand it. It was more, I understand what's happened. Is that water highly chlorinated? Are they going to pump it into the wetlands when they're done, or is that an effect or not?
So most pools are chlorinated, and keep them clear instead of the green. And most of the time, when they do pump it out, they just pump it out onto the ground, which eventually would make it to the wetlands. So we could ask them to, as part of this, to not pump it directly into the wetlands, but onto the grass and try to filter it out before it gets into the wetlands. And one other thing that just occurred to me, we approved the filling and the grading of the back part, not the installation of a pool and moving the shed down and that kind of thing. So we have to decide whether it's a minor project change or do we want them to do something different?
Well, as Mo said, I'd be concerned about the water and what's in it for contaminants getting into a wetland area. That's going to be an expensive proposition to fill that pool every single year.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of water to have to either buy from the town or hire a company to come in and fill.
Sure.
John, were there wetland markers put up where the 50-foot? I can't imagine we didn't require that.
I don't recall. There weren't any there, so I don't recall. So I'll have to check on that.
Okay, we've been pretty thorough with just about any order of conditions we issue requiring markers put up. So I just figured that one other thing we might as well check on before they complete their project.
Right.
So let's say they don't have the requirement for putting in the markers. We could send them a minor project change to include the shed, the pool, and the swing set move or installation for the pool and the move for the shed and the swing set as a minor project change with the requirement that they do not pump the water into the wetlands and they install PVC markers along the line.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'd go with that.
Tie it into the,
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
And I mean, if they were required for the markers, then just make sure they're up, but still add the no pumping of the pool water into the wetlands as a minor project change. But that should work.
So if it was already in there for the pipes, then it's just the requirement for not pumping. But if the pipes weren't put in there because it was considered a kind of a very minor project to start with, and it could have been left off. I don't know, but we can include that if it was left off.
Yep.
All right. So we should have a motion on that one.
Okay, I will entertain a motion to amend the order of conditions as a minor project change for the moving of the shed and the swing set and installation of the pool with the requirement to make sure that there are markers and no pumping of the pool water into a wetland.
Sounds good. I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Right. So moved. And now we have 153 Scotland Street.
So this is the original 153 Scotland Street when they were doing some grading in the backyard, and prior to 143 changing the slope on their backyard, they bottom of the slope was right here on 143. And so they cleared the brush down to the 50-foot buffer and then gradually smoothed out the slope and blended it in with this one. And you can see the chicken coop and chicken pen that was out there originally. And the wetland is pretty much this back tree line here. And so that's a historical picture. And as a result of questions as to what might be going on in the backyard, this is what I found. There's a fence up now. The chicken coop is gone, but there's a shed that didn't have a building permit for. And the play area has now been installed. And this it's probably exactly the same type of pool here that was on 143. And that was originally up closer to the house. I do have another picture I'll show you. There's that same pool back when the chicken coop was more to the right. These are the historical, the chicken coop one, and this one is what it was like back then. And now this has been moved over to the other place, and I'll bring that one back up. So here's the back of the patio. So the pool was probably right about in this area here. This one was approved for having the grading done in the backyard, and that's pretty much it. It's sort of similar to 143 in that we are only approving the grading and disturbing the soil within 100 feet of the wetland in the backyard. So now they have some new things out there, and that wasn't part of the order. I would say that he's now filed for the building permit for the shed, which I think was a more or less a prefab type shed brought in and set down on blocks. And the chicken coop has been removed, and
Go ahead.
And of course, we have these new things that were added, and the pool moved closer to the back.
John, if I remember right, the shed, the chicken coop was about right where the shed is?
A little bit more to the right of where you see that shed now, but not much. It was pretty close.
But about the same distance from the house.
Yes.
And if I remember, the reason we required the chicken coop to be moved because it was within the 50 foot, if I remember correctly.
I think you are right.
Which means that fence, the shed, the play area, parts of or all would be within the 50 foot. Which means they all have to be moved. And I mean, I know how Lee would feel. And I know Lee would be raising a very loud scream and holler right now over this situation. But I'm to the point where I'd want them all moved and I want markers put in. And I'm almost to the point where I want granite markers 50 feet high so I can see it from the road.
It's getting frustrating. It really is.
Yeah. This one here, we gave an inch, we gave a mile. He got a 3-car garage, a bigger driveway. And as far as I know, no stormwater permit issued for the increased footage and volume of impervious surface. And now this is happening in the backyard. And I'm wondering where the shed is there. If you looked at the neighbors at 143, where their shed and pool is, because they went right up to the 50-foot line, where that 50-foot line matches to his backyard. I'm thinking his backyard goes back further than their backyard by a considerable amount.
Right.
The historical 50-foot line, I would believe, goes straight right across the properties all along there at one point in time. And over the last 12 to 15 years since the houses were built, they've just pushed it back, pushed it back, pushed it back, filled it in, and now they all have nice, huge, big backyards, which weren't originally there. So I'd want to see some plans or something where the 50-foot line is compared to what those sheds and fence are, and I'd want them out of there.
All right, so what I could do is go out and take measurements and mark it for the homeowner, and then have them in the next meeting so that I could report what I find and how far there is an encroachment. And
I mean, and they knew that the chicken coop, from my recollection, was an issue the last time. I mean, I don't know if we want to put any more teeth in this or just say another error on somebody's part, but with all the engineers and all the engineering that went into this and all the discussion, I mean, that chicken coop, I'm almost positive we called it, had to be moved out because it was within the 50. And they knew that. And to me, this is just a blatant, I don't really care about your conservation regulations at all.
Yeah, I don't recall that, Tim, but if it's true, I would agree with you. Yeah. I agree.
Right. Just so that we're certain, I need to go out and take those measurements. I don't plan to do an as-built plan for the owner, but at least I'll have a better understanding of where they are in relation to the wetland, and be able to report to the commission at the next meeting and invite the owner to attend the Zoom meeting, so that, and I think they knew it was on for this evening as well, but attend the Zoom meeting and be able to listen to what the commission has to say and have a better understanding of what you want, and not have it go through the words of the engineer that represented them the last time.
Yep. Now, did they record their order of conditions as well?
Yes, they had done all of that.
Okay.
So that'll be the first step, to find out where the 50 is. And that's going to be sort of an unofficial 50, right?
Yes, I'm not going to certify like an as-built type thing for him. That's what
No.
Have to do,
He,
but at least
may
I have
to, though.
All right. So we'll wait for an enforcement on that one until we get all our ducks all lined up and see how they go.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we talk about putting teeth into things, or, you know, we're just limited on the teeth thing, I guess.
Right, right.
Well,
As to how-
I think the commission always tries to be fair, number one, with the permitting and
Yes,
not over restrict things. And then when people do make mistakes, I think the commission tries to work with them.
Mhm.
But I think what happens is that if there's flagrant violations and everybody understands that the commission will forgive everybody no matter what, then you start to lose some of your ability to do the right job.
Yeah, well put, John. Yeah,
Yeah.
well put.
We have one more, is that it?
Yes, Ames Drive, an inspection. Report on the silt fence and the stockpile and
All right, so this is Ames Drive coming in off of Southbrook, is it? So you come in off South Street into this development, and Ames Drive is just a dirt road right now because it was never constructed, and it's being constructed as a driveway into this site for the new house out back. And just as you get at the end of what would be Ames Drive, the contractor who did the work on the site for Mr. Adams, the original applicant, put in erosion control barrier, the silt fence that you see right here, and stockpiled everything up against it. And as you can see, as the weathered surface of the stockpile gradually slumped down onto the silt fence, it's not holding back very much at all. And so this is only one picture of the pile, but it's pretty much this way all the way around. So now we have a new owner of the property, and that owner has met with me and the contractor that's working for him on a pre-construction meeting that's required as part of the order of conditions. And they were given the instructions on what they need to do, including re-establishing the silt fence and getting a certified letter from the engineer that everything's in its right place and installed properly. So today I stopped by and checked it, and nothing more has been done on the stockpile, and the contractor has installed and reinstalled some silt fencing in the area where the new house is going, which is more to as if it would be behind me in the direction I took this picture. It would be behind me and more to my right as you're looking at this picture. So they've got the footings in now for a foundation. It's going to be quite a lot of fill involved with it because of the high groundwater table. And so that's where they are at this point. My thought was that tomorrow, after seeing this today, that I would speak to the developer and say that we got to do something about the stockpile.
Those caterpillars.
And be able to do some either pulling it back away from the silt fence so that there's a little bit of a gap so that anything that washes off the pile doesn't go over the top and into the wetlands. So that's my recommendation on that, unless somebody has something that you would like.
No,
I'm
fine
just
to meet, John.
surprised that I'm just surprised that National Grid hasn't been down there about that stockpile of material, being that it's in their easement and it's such a high stockpile. I know with ours, anything over 12 feet in change of elevation was a huge no-no and would require enforcement by their lawyers. So I'm surprised, but I'm guessing with COVID and all, they may
They're
not
not
be out
there.
inspecting their sites as much. And the
That's right.
helicopters I know haven't been around as much, so they may not even know it's there.
Yeah.
So I'm standing on top of the pile right now, looking down it. And I did notice that the hairs on the top of my head started to stand up a little bit. So I guess you're right. It's pretty high up compared to where the wires are. So only kidding.
But
So we're
no,
working on
getting that
this.
silt fence. Yeah, getting the silt fence fixed would be a good requirement.
All right. So I think that's it.
Okay, the only other question I have, oh, go ahead, John. What do you got?
All right. Let's see. So I don't want to have this done through an executive session, but the excess land that's around the 40B that was left off of the conveyance to the town's 110 acre parcel that we got behind the 40B had left some gaps between existing properties that is still owned by Hasiotis. And it's come to my attention that the attorney for Hasiotis has offered to dispose of that land, and I don't think they want to just give it to the town. So a person who's worked with them very much at the state level for purchasing and obtaining property for the state land inventory has indicated that it's very wet land and very low value, but if we offer something for it, there's a good chance that we would get the land conveyed to us. It really, again, is low value, wetlands, floodplain. Nobody could ever develop it, but it leaves a gap between what we own and some of the abutters and some of our own land. The Anderson family conveyed us some land out behind the town transfer station and the river. So this would fill in that gap. And I would like to pursue finding out how much we have in the Wetlands Protection Fund, and also look at whether any of it's being taken for taxes, because you don't want to buy land that's going to already be taken for taxes. And come back to the commission with some information at the next meeting. And that's in case the commission wants to spend some money to kind of fill in the gaps that have been left inadvertently, or because there were a lot of questions as to who actually owned that parcel. If you ever read the deeds into the Hasiotis family, they talk about these parcels, and it's very hard to identify where they are. And they talk about the old owners. That's how far back some of those descriptions go. So they're not modern descriptions. And a lot of times it takes quite a bit of time and effort to figure out what parcel is which parcel. And I think what may have happened is some of those parcels were left off the plan that the developer had prepared to convey that 110 acres of land to the commission. So I'd like to try to correct some of that and spend a little bit of time on that. And I didn't want to do it if the commission had no desire at all.
How much is it, John? Can you tell, or is it just a bunch of little parcels?
So it would probably amount to possibly somewhere around, all combined, about 15 acres. But again, a lot of it's all wetland and floodplain and part of the river system. So it would never be built upon.
And it's landlocked,
Yeah,
I believe. I mean, so I mean, if it's a low cost incurred by us or the town or whoever on our side, then I would say pursue it. My other question is, would it be worth talking to the water department, considering we've given them easement rights to protect land for the watershed stuff we had to do earlier in this process?
Yes.
I mean, would there be something they could pony up as an in-kind donation to help protect more of this area? Just be creative, thinking outside the box here.
If I don't write something down while I'm thinking of it, sorry, that's what I was doing right there. I think that it's worth pursuing, talking to Wayne and see what his thoughts are. And obviously, I think the commission did a big favor to the water department and the town residents for allowing the town to draw more water without having some penalties or being restricted. And having that open space land that recent really paid off in wonderful benefit to the town. So I think, you know, there is some merit to asking and see what they say. They may not have that flexibility, but at least it's worth pursuing.
Because I mean, knowing going forward that with DEP the way they are, and I can foresee that maybe not in the next 5 or 10, but maybe the 15 or 20-year mark when this permit renews, the town may have to come back and preserve another parcel of land to increase the water usage.
Right.
And knowing if we have it in the bank, so to speak, we could do this again at some point.
Right.
And if it's a number we can't come up with, going to the town and saying, hey, this is a potential benefit, and can we get funds to spend if we need to protect it?
I mean, it's of no value to the Hasiotis people, I don't believe, is it?
No, that's why they want to get rid of it. They don't want it. It's no benefit to the 40B developer. He's indicated to that attorney that he's not interested.
But they don't want to donate it, I guess, as far as we know.
Well, my thought would be that the amount that possibly the commission may want to offer is maybe enough to cover the cost of doing all of this transferring, having attorney spend time doing the transfer, and a little bit more just as an incentive, but not a lot, because again, it's not a high value land, so you don't want to get into. There is some benefit to it that even though it's not buildable, there is some benefit to protect our land in case one of the abutters were to be able to buy it from the attorney that's offering it on behalf of the Hasiotis. And they might be able to go in and do some tree clearing and that kind of thing. And I think by us filling in the gaps into our land, that would prevent that and protect that area, which is a prime habitat for endangered species. So it would just take away the possibility that either by mistake or because of overzealous action by an abutter, we are protecting the land even more. So
yeah,
again,
I agree.
I don't think we should spend a lot of money for it, but if the commission's interested, I'll find out exactly what is what and how much we have, and we can discuss an amount later on. And it shouldn't be too much. I mean, I know that's all relative, but it's not like we're going to be buying high value land.
Yeah.
Right.
Nope. I think that's a good idea.
Pennies on the dollar, I would say. This one
Yes.
is in my.
Yeah. John, my only other thing I have
99 pennies on the dollar.
is a question regarding the planning board in their meetings.
Mm.
Because I know some notifications have gone out recently for tomorrow night's meeting, and it lists that they're meeting in the town hall in the conference room. Are they, or is this an error in the notifications?
I believe that they are meeting in the town hall.
Okay.
I am not sure of the logistics. I'm not sure how legal it is. And the reason I say that is that when you publish an agenda, you are offering to anyone in the public the opportunity to come in and witness what is going on in your meeting. And the way that conference room is set up with the table,
Yep.
foot distancing between the members, 6 foot distance between the applicant and their representatives, and the board and the people that are running the cable TV, and any public person who wants a butter wants to listen. It's not going to cut it out in the hallway trying to hear what's going on, and there may be more than one person out in the hallway, so you have to have them distance apart. So I think to make it so that there wouldn't be ever any claim that the meeting was not open entirely to the public, you either have to continue doing the Zoom and offering an invitation that they can, if they care to, link into, or we have to find a suitable room where people could come in and be 6 feet apart with amplification so they can hear properly what's going on in the meeting and be able to see presentations up on the screen. So we can do it. We just we'd have to work pretty hard at it and have an alternate site to be able to do it in. And I don't believe our conference room cuts it.
Okay.
I think if we had the ability for the public to discuss with us from a remote, like we do with our Zoom meetings, then we're complying, because they can talk to us. We can let them talk to us. They can ask questions. I think the 40B hearings that we had were a good example of how many people could join in. And it seems as if those abutters to that project that cared to participate were able to, and from everything I've heard indirectly, that they were satisfied with what the commission did and how the commission did it. So I'm not trying to tell any other board on how they should run their business, but I don't think that that they can do it with. And again, I'm not certain on how they're doing everything, but
right.
I understand it looks as if it may not meet all of the requirements.
Yeah, because there was a couple items on their agenda that was posted, and I was thinking of zooming in, and that wasn't an option. And I'm like, I wasn't really going to sign up to go into town hall with a potential 25 or 30 people in that room. I just don't think that's a safe place to be right now.
Right.
So I was just curious how they were figuring on holding that with no option other than an in-person. So I was just looking for any insight, because I know we all would like to eventually get back to town hall, but until we're safe, I think this works.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we did a short FinCom meeting last week, but it was just to do year-end transfers, so it was very quick. And the public probably wouldn't have been interested anyway, although we did have the Zoom set up. But I agree, it's pretty tight in there. It's pretty tight.
Okay, well, I'll just keep waiting to see how it plays out. And
All right.
I'm fairly confident that we're going to be getting some guidance from the town administration on this, because I think the ZBA is finally going to hold one of their meetings in the town hall, and they weren't doing Zoom because they didn't feel that it was workable. And so they're coming back, and we'll maybe be able to see how they handle it, because many of their hearings are well attended by abutters, and we could see how that is done.
Okay,
So I don't-
just something
don't-
to,
I'm not advocating that we do something like they did at town meeting where we meet in the gymnasium, but we need a little bit more.
right.
And the unfortunate part is that, we may prepare for all that and find that either no one comes because they're not interested other than the applicant, or, one or two people show up and we could have had it in a room. But I think the thing that I fear is that, that somebody would feel that they were denied their ability to participate. And one of my first ever duties as a Board of Health member in my hometown, as chairman of that board, was to respond to a public open meeting law violation from the state. And we didn't even know that we had violated it. And some people can go to the extreme, and they bend over backwards to accommodate the public to make sure they are aware of what is happening at these public meetings. So that was very uncomfortable, and I'd hate to see that happen again. But we'll work on it.
Well, I think you've done a tremendous job, John, with the Zoom, and particularly getting the documents up on the screen. And it almost feels like we got it down pretty good at this point.
Yeah, and I mean, even the engineers that have presented,
Yes.
with
Yeah.
glitches that we've had worked. I mean, they were
Yes.
able to bring their material up and discuss it and show us what their plans were.
Yeah.
So I think it's doable. I think it can be done. You just have to be committed and want to do it. So.
All right. All right.
Anybody have anything else?
I don't.
All right. If I hear nothing, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second,
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
uh,
All right. Thanks, guys. Stay
Take
safe.
care.